This is the TinkerTub ATX PC case. I can approach it confidently with the screwdriver in one hand and remove all the paneling in one simple motion. I'll just put that aside. I can now fold down the front fan mounts, and I can access all the components of my system in the manner of an open chassis test bench. Now, since these all reattach magnetically, again, with one hand, I can completely reassemble the unit. It's as simple as that. The design and patent of the TinkerTub does allow for a tower version. The only disadvantage being, after you remove the housing, you of course have to lie it down in order to get to your full test bed experience, but I'm sure that would be preferable to somebody who would prefer a smaller footprint. The case does have room for an eATX motherboard and even the longest, say 35 centimeter or even more video cards. You can also flip the case upside down to work on the underside of your motherboard. Say for example, when you are working on installing a CPU cooler which uses rear CPU brackets. With the sloped design with the intake at the front and the exhaust at the rear, it creates almost a wind tunnel effect. Steve, I'd love to see what that looks like with your team's airflow photography you can do. And with the unobstructed airflow and these 14 centimeter fans, I'd love to see how well it does in your hemi-anechoic chamber. It's just water. By the way, this is using an independent PWM and ARGB controller with a variable speed controller for the rear fans, all as part of the chassis. So you could reinstall Windows, completely replace your motherboard, and you'd still have the color configuration you've chosen for the fans and the right positive pressure arrangement to keep the dust out. Nice for just absolutely easiest possible maintenance. So why TinkerTub? I know it sounds like an old fishing boat or some kind of novelty bathtub. Well, Tinkerbox, Tinkertank, and Snapcase were all taken, so I guess I hope it's at least memorable. The inspiration for developing this case came from doing this build, which is a pretty sophisticated water-cooled build. And I had a run of bad luck with a lot of components needing maintenance and needing to be swapped out. And I got really tired of how involved it was to disassemble, drain the loop, and all that kind of stuff. And after that, I was left feeling like for my next build, I wanted to be able to change whatever I needed to change as easily as possible. So strong was this desire, in fact, that no cases on the market really met my requirements for how easy I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be an absolute joy to get in and work on whatever part of the components that I wanted to do. That's why I developed the TinkerTub. I considered just using an open bench PC, but I have kids and I didn't want to compromise on the safety that an enclosed case gives you, or the aesthetic really. This is a little bit rustic, I know, but if you got some custom length, individually sleeved cables or something like that going on, I reckon that you could get a pretty good aesthetic going here as well. You could do a water-cooled build in this case. It would be a little antithetical to the whole design concept of everything being easy maintenance. But I can see that because of all this large surface area of transparent paneling, someone might be tempted to do a concept build in here. These fan mounts do technically support any standard 360mm or 420mm objects. These rear fans are rear mounted, so tube length might be a little bit of a challenge, especially with all-in-one coolers. And of course the front fan mounts need to be able to fold down. But with a bit of strategic application of soft tubing, you could make it happen. At the moment the framing is made out of aluminium extrusion. In future I could consider making the frame a single factory made piece, but I'm actually really enjoying having it made out of aluminium extrusion because it makes it really moddable. Aluminium extrusion is like Lego for aluminium, and that can be really helpful. For example, this design is obviously really M2 drive centric. There are no drive mounts whatsoever, aside from what might be provided on the motherboard. However, the other day I did actually want to use a SATA drive on this. I attached a couple of L plates here, which are spaced just right for mounting a 2.5-inch drive, and I had SATA drive support, right? And there's no end to what you could do with it. Things I'd like to improve about the TinkerTub. I'd like the dust filter on the front fan mount to be a slide to remove. It's a little bit of a tight angle to have your screwdriver in on these PCI slots. It's all workable, but for a case which is all about ease of maintenance, these are improvements I think I should make. I'd also like the cutout in the motherboard mount to support accessing the underside of the CPU in a wider range of motherboards. I'd also like to include a rear bracket for really long and heavy video cards. In this orientation, you don't really need one for avoiding strain on your motherboard, on your PCI slot. And you can also transport it without worrying about that because of this orientation. But it would be nice if you could throw it around with a bit more confidence, turn it upside down to work on your wiring. I'd love to do a crowdfunder for the TinkerTub. That will enable me to make these kinds of improvements, and I could have milestones for things like a kit set build, a fully pre-built with all the right packaging and so on to transport it safely to you. Things like a nice rounded and molded housing. So if you're interested, please go to tinkertub.com. I promise it's safe for work. It's just an expression of interest form. If I get enough interest, then I'll dive into this.